Welcome to the debate. Our focus today is on the very complex process of turning a strategic intent into a successful physical presence at a trade show. And the data here is pretty unequivocal. I mean, success really hinges on careful strategy and audience alignment, something that over 80% of American exhibitors consistently report. We're looking at the design process itself, which has two really critical verification stages meant to ensure an abstract concept actually works in the real world.
And that translation, that jump from the digital blueprint to physical reality, that's exactly where the tension is. The five-step design framework we're looking at includes step 4, which is the sophisticated 3D visualization, and then there's step 5, the on-site functional verification. They're both checks, sure, but they serve fundamentally different purposes, which I think leads us right to our core disagreement today. Which of these stages is the real determinant of success?
The central question, then, is this. In this 5-step design process, is the 3D visualization stage, step 4, the decisive moment for achieving a successful outcome, or is the on-site functionality and attendee flow verification stage, step 5, the true ultimate determinant of success?
I'm going to argue that while 3D modeling is, of course, an essential planning phase, it's really just the projection of an idea. The critical assurance, the thing that really matters, comes from that real-world functional testing during step 5. It's the necessary, final guardrail against the inevitable operational failures that a digital model just can't truly capture or predict.
And I'll contend that the sophisticated 3D modeling is the crucial stage. It acts as the primary mechanism for strategic risk mitigation. It forces this profound concept refinement and validation long before a single dollar is committed to physical fabrication. It ensures the very foundation of the exhibit is structurally and aesthetically sound.
I understand the allure of step 4, I do. That sense of having total control in a perfect digital environment.
Oh, it's more than just allure. It's what I'd call the primacy of 3D visualization. Step 4 is that pivot point where ideas move from these abstract goals into a tangible visual reality. And the source material emphasizes this transition precisely because it happens before you commit. We're not talking about simple floor plans here. We're talking about professional software capable of, detailed spatial rendering, texture mapping, and incredibly realistic material simulations.
All of which exist only as data points on a screen.
Exactly. And that digital precision is where massive risk is neutralized. The 3D model is a primary risk identification tool. It lets designers experiment with really complex configurations, simulate light and shadow, and confirm graphic placements with absolute precision. Just think about the financial exposure here. By accurately simulating materials like how a very costly veneer finish is going to look under that harsh, often inconsistent convention center lighting, we make sure the premium aesthetic is actually perceived. If that perception fails, the strategic objective fails. So step 4 bridges imagination and execution. It makes sure the virtual model accurately represents dimensions and, crucially, strategic visitor movement, capturing the brand's essence digitally so it can be flawlessly executed physically.
Okay, that's a compelling case for the utility of 3D modeling, I'll give you that, but utility doesn't equate to criticality. The source material itself offers a really critical counterpoint here, a very distinct warning against getting, quote, lost in technical details and forgetting functional practicality. So I would argue that the visualization is merely a robust planning tool that must, at the end of the day, face the cold, hard validation of reality.
But if the blueprint is flawed, the building will fail.
And if the blueprint is flawless, but the execution is fragile, the building still fails. The necessity of on-site verification, step 5, is paramount because it addresses the dynamic variables that step 4 simply cannot. I mean, we are dealing with real human behavior, real power grids, and real technological interfaces. This final stage requires a comprehensive examination to ensure the beautiful digital concept translates seamlessly into a functional physical space that operates under pressure.
What specific operational failures are so insurmountable that they undermine the foundational design integrity that's established in step 4?
The unpredictable elements, it's human interaction and live technology. Step 5 explicitly mandates testing all the technological integrations, the display mechanisms, the presentation equipment, and most critically, it demands simulating realistic visitor scenarios, a full walkthrough, mapping traffic patterns to prevent congestion. These human factors are fundamentally difficult to model digitally. I mean, a person in a VR headset does not behave like a visitor at a busy trade show who pauses, interacts unexpectedly, or, tries to bypass a crowd.
And that is precisely the core of our debate, isn't it? Predictive power versus real-world friction. I maintain that 3D modeling offers this unprecedented conceptual control. It allows for refinement of scale, of color schemes, of technological configurations before any real financial investment. Identifying and solving fundamental structural or aesthetic challenges at this stage, like a sightline obstruction or a poor material choice, is the most cost-effective form of verification possible. If we wait until step 5, we are not verifying success. We are desperately mitigating an emergency.
Cost-effectiveness is a budget conversation. Criticality is an outcome conversation. And while identifying things early is valuable, sure, the source is clear. The thorough walkthrough in Step 5 is required specifically to assess visitor flow and prevent congestion. You can draw clear pathways in a 3D model, of course, but only a physical simulation, where you have staff interacting and actual human bodies moving, stopping, and forming these little impromptu clusters, can confirm the fluid dynamics of the space. The friction of human reality, it always trumps a digital projection.
But let's unpack what the model does allow. It forces attention to these fine architectural details, the precise angles of projection, the effectiveness of ambient lighting, the specific height and placement of interactive zones. If the graphics are rendered incorrectly in Step 4, or if the lighting simulation shows a crucial brand message it's unreadable because of glare, well, Step 5 is irrelevant. The design integrity has already been compromised. Treating Step 4 as just a rough sketch means on-site adjustments become massive, expensive, and inevitably rushed, which undermines a very professionalism the entire process is meant to achieve. Step 4 ensures the foundation itself is sound.
I appreciate that insight on architectural integrity, but that fundamentally ignores the highest stakes risk: operational failure. Let's move to the technical side. The most severe and frankly embarrassing exhibit failures are almost always technical and operational. Step 5 is explicitly where one must, and I quote, test all technological integrations, display mechanisms, and interactive elements.
I'm not entirely convinced by that because the visualization incorporates these elements. We know exactly where the kiosk goes, how big the screen is, what the necessary power draw will be.
A placement is a static design choice. Verification is a dynamic functional test. The 3D model only places the technology. The on-site walkthrough verifies that the digital displays operate correctly under continuous load, that the network connectivity is stable, that the demo equipment runs smoothly without crashing, and that the audio-visual output is actually audible above the roar of a convention hall. The difference between a perfectly placed object and a perfectly operating system, that's the distinction between Step 4 and Step 5.
That's a compelling argument, but have you considered the underlying configuration risk that Step 4 preempts? The visualization stage, it generates a comprehensive visualization that includes all these environmental factors that impact technology. For instance, if the screen is placed near a massive window, the Step 4 lighting simulation will show immediately that the display is washed out and functionally useless. If the layout requires complex cabling that creates a tripping hazard, a design flaw identified in Step 4, the functionality is guaranteed to fail on-site, no matter how robust the Wi-Fi signal is in Step 5. By resolving these inherent configuration issues digitally, the on-site check just becomes a final confirmation, not a primary discovery phase for fatal flaws.
I come at it from a different angle. The warning in the source material is stark and it's pragmatic. Do not wait until the event starts to discover functional problems. That implies that the highest risk issues are the ones related to live operation under pressure. A pre-event rehearsal is required in Step 5 to make sure the team can troubleshoot and adapt. The visualization stage can't tell you if a staff member accidentally unplugs a crucial server or if the HVAC system right above the booth causes overheating that crashes a proprietary interactive display. Step 5 is where you address the potential for functional failure that compromises the entire exhibit's ability to conduct business efficiently. We're testing operational resilience, not just aesthetic appearance.
Operational resilience is undermined if the design is fundamentally confusing or ineffective. And that brings us to the final and I think most crucial point, the true measure of impact. My core argument is that an impactful exhibit is defined by its ability to translate strategic objectives into a compelling narrative and visual identity. And this narrative, the use of space, the flow of messaging, the sensory experience, is fully refined and realized during the 3D visualization phase. Step 4 ensures the design balances that aesthetic appeal with functional practicality before fabrication even begins. It's the conceptual integrity that draws the audience in.
Impact has to be translated into meaningful engagement, into memorable connections with the target audience. And this final, powerful impression depends entirely on smooth visitor movement and flawless interaction. If the booth looks beautiful, but visitors are, bottlenecked at the demonstration area because the seating was too close to the main aisle, an issue that is only fully revealed and tested during the live physical flow simulation in Step 5, then the impact is immediately lost. The investment is wasted on frustration.
But the aesthetic appeal is the strategic hook. If the 3D modeling fails to align the lighting, the graphics, and the layout with the strategic goals, for example, making the brand message secondary to the product display, then the engagement will be poor, regardless of how smoothly people get out of the bottleneck. Step 4 defines the quality of the engagement before the engagement ever takes place. It solidifies the brand communication.
I disagree. Quality in this environment is defined by successful execution and operational delivery. We have to recognize the fundamental difference here. The digital simulation of Step 4 is a perfect, controlled, theoretical environment. The physical reality of Step 5 is it's chaotic, it's messy, and it's prone to human error and technological failure. I simply don't buy that the visualization, which is an artificial environment, provides a greater assurance of success than the mandatory physical reality check that's needed to ensure human behavior and technical limitations don't just derail the entire investment.
So we have definitely established a necessary tension here between ensuring foundational design integrity through preemptive digital refinement and validating operational readiness through that final physical inspection.
Indeed. To summarize my position, while the digital blueprint in Step 4 is necessary to establish the design integrity, the critical assurance of success, the element that guarantees the multi-million-dollar investment will actually function as intended, it comes from the final on-site assessment. That stage validates attendee flow, smooth operation, and reliable technical integration under simulated, realistic conditions. It is the final essential performance test.
And I would summarize by asserting that the strategic value of 3D modeling fundamentally outweighs the final on-site check. Step 4 is where you test possibilities, you eliminate critical structural and aesthetic design flaws, and you ensure the foundation for functionality and powerful brand communication is sound before the expense of fabrication. It is the phase that pre-mitigates the most costly errors.
The design process is highly iterative, and I think success clearly requires diligence in both the sophisticated visualization phase and the practical on-site verification. The source material does an exceptional job of highlighting that inherent challenge of translating strategic goals, which are, fundamentally abstract, into a compelling, functional, physical space.
It forces all exhibitors to confront that unavoidable trade-off, a trade-off between the detailed, cost-effective precision of the digital world and the necessity of real-world functional testing under pressure, and considering where the greatest leverage exists to mitigate overall risk and maximize final exhibit impact. Well, that's a debate that has to be constantly reassessed.
An excellent conversation, leaving our listeners to consider which check truly serves as the ultimate determinant of a successful trade show outcome.
Thank you for this discussion, as always.